Hi everybody, welcome to the Idea Student Society Town Hall. For this event, we are going to be talking about a little bit about our leadership and what these positions consist of and what everybody does and what's behind the scenes. So then people that are interested in the next academic year, I think it's 24-25, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
um, math. So then they can actually take part in that leadership. And at the end of everything, we'll hold all the questions for at the end, if anybody has them, and we'll stop the recording before any of the questions, so nothing is posted, but this will be posted to YouTube. And so we'll also have a form that we will have at the end to send out to anybody that's interested in leadership, so then they can fill it out, so then we can start the shadowing process where you'll actually watch our officers and meet our team and actually learn everything. So what we'll cover, first thing is the chain of command and the officer positions. Second is understanding what your position is or what these positions are really. The third is requirements of actually being a leader. The fourth is elected officer positions, such as your VPs and your president. And then five is appointed officer positions. These are positions that your exec team actually selects. And then number four is proper etiquette and expectations for our leadership.
All right, so let's talk about our chain of command. There are many different officer positions, as you can see. You're expected to kind of know what everyone does and what their role is in our officer team, as obviously we are a team, so we all do work together, and sometimes officers will jump in to assist other officers, so it's good to know exactly what officer does.
So our officer positions consist of the president, VP of operations, VP of communications, IDE advisor, officer of advertising and branding, officer of engagement, officer of event management, officer of community outreach, which those are kind of a duo, officer of recruitment, and officer of web administration. We're actually going to get into what each of these truly are and what they do.
So as you can see, we have our little chain of command. The president is the one who oversees all the officers as well as the entire club. And then you have the VP of operations and the VP of communications. These positions assist the president in overseeing the different tasks that our officers do. And as you can see, specific officers kind of go to different vice presidents as their like chain of command, and then those vice presidents will report back to the president on whether the officers are in need of help, they're doing their assigned tasks. So for this, you can see for VP of operations, event management, um, outreach, kind of the same, which is the community outreach. Those will all go to operations, IDE advisor, and recruitment. Web admin kind of just reports to the president as the president helps design the website. And then you have outreach, advertising and branding, and engagement fall under communications because we all kind of work together to get events and information out to the club.
So one thing that is really important to mention is that our society's motto, which is collaboration, not competition. We work as a team, so it's really important that you get along with everybody on our team because we all have to work with each other in every way you can imagine. Everybody has to work with one another here.
So, and then understanding being an officer, and then in order to understand the position that you're interested in, that you run for, it is required that you know our club's constitution, which you can find in our Google Drive if you become an officer, but it's also accessible on Sun Devil Sync. So you can actually read that at any point during your time as a member in Ideas. It's open for you to come and read about, to ask questions about, so it is freely available for you to read.
So some requirements of being a leader. So for executive officers, which is the elected positions, we require a 3.0 GPA, a minimum of 3 credits per semester, and you have to be on Discord. And as an executive officer, you need to actually be in school for the whole academic year. So you can't graduate halfway through. Like, for example, if you're done in fall, you can't continue to be an exec because that's a half a year. Like it needs to be fall and spring. So it's a full year. So there's not another election process or a voting system that has to be put in place. Appointed officers are, again, the officers that the execs choose and interview through, which by interview, just talk to. um, we require a 2.5 GPA, a minimum of 3 credit per semester. Be on Discord for you have to have it on your phone essentially, because this is our prime way of communicating with people. Also, if your role requires you to be on a platform, you have to have it. So if your engagement, you need to have Instagram, you need to have Facebook, you need to have etc. because that's part of your role is actually communicating with people. Or if you are, what's another thing that we do? Like our newsletter editors have to have access to LinkedIn. So it's things like that where we require certain sites for our officers.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about the executive officers, which are our elected officials. They are the president, the vice president of operations, and the vice president of communications.
So I'm not going to read through all of these, but this is what's actually shown on our Constitution. So you can find all of these bullet points down to the nitty gritty, all on our Constitution that you can find on our website, SDS, etc. So essentially, as a summary of all of this, of what I do as a president, is I help set the yearly schedule. So I actually sit down with the other execs and we lay out how we want things to happen, what events we are aiming for, what big events we want to see. For example, like the STEM fair and then our summer events, that is an exec thing that we sit down and organize. The president also presides over all meetings and activities. So for the most part, you have to go to everything. You have to oversee things. You also are delegating any necessary responsibilities. So if an officer says, I can't do this, I don't know what to do, you are the one that sits back and says, okay, well, this is how we need to fix this. If the VPs also can't help assign that with their certain officers that they have, right? You also are the point of contact for the university. So as the president, you will get a lot of emails. You will get a lot of requests for collaborations, for communications. You'll have to sit down with the ASU online clubs actual board, essentially a board, and you'll have to like order swag and sit through and actually kind of figure out the behind the scenes as well. I can do this one too. So for Vice President of Operations, this is another VP that also presides over meetings in the absence of the president, alongside with the VP of Communications. So they assist the president with the operation of the club. So they really look into the officers that do event management, and they make sure things run as they should, as smoothly as they should. They also help assist with grievance forms or any member conflicts. We don't typically see a lot of that, but it's nice that we have this in place in case there are problems. We do have a position specifically to dissolve and resolve everything that happens. They also help determine policy and provide direction for the club. Again, they are another point of contact that will also be involved in decision making with the president, as other VP will be as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so as the vice president of communications, I'm also the other VP exec that presides over the meetings in the absence of the other two executives. I'm also the one who keeps note of the meetings. I make the meeting notes. I write down everything we discuss in the meetings. I take care of the recordings. And I make sure that they are posted in the officers' Google Drive so that way everybody can read them. I also update all the calendars, like our Google Calendar that we have, our SDS calendar, our Asana, with everything, all the events, tasks that's required of the team. I'm also point of contact for specific officers such as advertising and branding, engagement, just because those ones are really like the foreface of the club. Like we get the engagement going, advertisement posts about the club. So we all work in conjunction to make sure that everybody knows about ideas. I also work with the executive officers to help document attendance for the for their weekly meetings that we have. I help monitor social media posts to make sure that they're doing the etiquette. And then I also announce any club happenings, i.e. like town hall, OH hours if our event or engagement officer can't do it. So I'm kind of the hear me now, communicate with all our members, vice president position. And I can do this one too. So after you have the elected officers, now you have the appointed officers. These are the officers that are appointed by the newly elected executive team. So we interview people who are interested in an officer position, and then we assign who we feel is best fit for these positions. And these ones include our IDE advisor, our officer of engagement, officer of recruitment, officer of advertising and branding, the officer of event management / community outreach, and our web administration, as well as also our newsletter editors. So we'll go ahead and get this over to Gabby since she's our IDE officer.
Yes, thanks. So this role is about setting an example for inclusive practices within the club. So responsibilities include overseeing virtual posts to ensure disability inclusion, researching about accessibility resources for all the events and the platforms that we're on, and also serving as a contact for the resources like sales, LGBTQ+, and ASU cultural groups within the university. For this position, you'll also work with the Officer of Recruitment to look for collaboration opportunities with other student organizations and, for example, new member orientations. And also advocating for online student opportunities with faculty, for example, is another part of this role. And practically, you'll be adding closed captioning and editing YouTube videos for our club's channel. So the content is accessible to everyone. So yeah, so this position has their hands in everything. So you will work with all the other officers pertaining to the topic. So maybe you need to help review the newsletter for inclusion and language or a graphic. So that's pretty much where this position goes. It's a more laid back position, but it is still very important for the club. And it also has flexibility for you to bring in your own ideas, such as taking more part in awareness posts and things like this.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and talk about our Officer of Engagement. This one is in charge of getting engagement within our social media groups on Discord, in office hours. They basically are the ones who help brainstorm our events for us. So they're the ones who help with our trivia nights, our movie nights, anything fun to get engagement going throughout the club. They're the ones who also post about the events. Like, as you've seen, Lauren is our Officer of Engagement. And she will post about when town hall is happening, office hours, our fun events. She does our weekly buzzes, as you can see, that's posted on Wednesdays. She also helps moderate the comments on social media platforms to make sure that they're within the rules of etiquette that we like to do. She'll help create surveys. She oversees like our online pages. So she has admin privileges to our Instagram, our Facebook, all that, just to make sure that she's able to engage with people. If they comment on something, they ask a question, we need a post added for someone on Facebook. And then one main thing of this role is that you have to be active within our social media. Like, engagement means being active, carrying on conversations. Like if someone starts a conversation, just kind of like make sure that it keeps going, or weekly buzzes, just make sure that it kind of keeps flowing so people stay engaged. And also with this role, it is required that you must be on all of our social media pages because you have to be able to engage with all of them. And so this one will go to our Officer of Recruitment, which is Nicolette.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So basically, as officer recruitment, I'm basically handling new members and the rosters. So we have an internal roster and also a Sun Devil Sync roster, which I keep track of and sync along with our social media. As our execs were saying, this is another position that would require you to be involved with, at the very least, Facebook and Discord, since that's where we handle new members. There is some stuff on here that I definitely want to go over as well, which includes the welcome week, which those are pretty heavy periods, so you'll have to keep track of the rosters and the expectation is usually that you'll check it like once a day or at least 5 times a week. You'll also be keeping track of the demographics form. This is another spreadsheet along with the other rosters. So again, like syncing data, it is a very like data heavy or like Excel spreadsheet heavy position. So you also work with the Officer of Advising to create recruitment ads and working with the IDE advisor. And you'll also be sending welcome messages and welcome packets. So when you became a new member, you most likely received an email saying, welcome to Ideas Student Society. That's usually sent by me, or if I can't get to it, an exec. And then the last thing is, of course, the roster, which I've already kind of discussed.
Cool. Okay. Hi. I'm Mason. I'm the current officer of advertising and branding. And while this might not look like a lot compared to the other slides, advertising and branding goes through periods of you do a lot and then you're kind of idle for a little bit. And like you do a little bit here, you do a little bit there, and then you're like in the trenches for a month. And then you're good for a little bit. So why do I say you're in the trenches? Okay. So that comes from what I started doing, which was the external contact spreadsheet. So that is where now it does not have to look exactly how I did it. I'm more than happy to help anyone who wants to do this role kind of figure out is the way I do it, how you want to do it, do you want to modify it? Like totally open to helping you get you up on your feet with that. But so what I did is I went through the ASU course search and I went through as many as reasonably as possible of the course acronyms. And I wrote down professors, what they were teaching, when they were teaching, their emails, so that I could send out targeted emails based on, let's say there's a professor teaching classes in session A, and then there's a different one teaching classes in session B. I can send out targeted emails to those based on when they're starting their classes and say, hey, I see that you're teaching a STEM class. There's a lot more pretty language, but basically, would you be willing to promote ideas in your class so that we can help provide some community for your STEM students? So that's one big part of the advertising and branding role, which is very behind the scenes. But it's definitely helped. I mean, we're almost at like 500 members now, and we started the year at like right under 200. So it's
We're
doing
almost at
something.
600.
We're almost at 600. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a very important piece of helping connect students. And yeah, and just like getting the club's name out there, which is all about advertising and branding. You're also, as advertising and branding, you'll also be in charge of designing graphics for the club. So we typically do that in Canva because that's easy to share. If you have some other form of graphic design software you love, feel free to talk with your execs about it. It should be perfectly okay. But Canva's super easy, super user friendly. Even if you don't have a lot of experience with graphic design, Canva's super easy to use. So I can definitely show you the ropes there, teach you some fundamentals of graphic design. And then another important piece of advertising and branding is working with all the other officers to figure out what kind of graphic they want. So when you'll kind of be in your officer meetings and you'll hear them talking about like events that they want to do and that kind of thing. It's kind of on you to kind of parse them with questions and be like, okay, what kind of stuff do we want to do? What kind of message do we want to convey in the graphic? Do we want to say we're doing this? Do we want to say we're doing that? Like you have to be more intentional than you might think so that you don't overpromise or say you're doing something but then you're not doing it or say it in like the wrong way, and like it's not as stressful as that sounds, but you just have to be very in the moment with it and make sure you're paying attention, because if you let it slip or you're not like asking people like I'll ask Junina all the time. I'll be like, hey, so like with this event, do we want it going direction A or direction B? And then based on what she tells me, I can kind of tailor the graphic towards that. So, but so when I say that the roll speeds up and then slows down, you're going to get heavy work when you have time, when you need to work on building that spreadsheet. You're going to have less work when you're not doing that and you're just making graphics. So that's very up to you how you manage that. I like to sit down like a month before those need to be sent out and crank it out for the whole semester. But you could work on it little by little throughout the whole semester for the next coming semester and be okay, which it also perfectly coincides with breaks like spring break, winter break, all that good stuff. So you have time to do it most of the time, so it's a-okay. But yeah, that's all I got.
Okay, so as my role, I do officer of event management, and this one, just like Mason's, is kind of a lot of behind the scenes. So all the emails that you get from SDS about events, I'm the one that's putting those into the system and basically sending out a mass email to everybody. Hey, you know, this is an event that we're having. We would love to have you if you were able to make it. And then I also moderate those events. I initiate and execute event planning. So I work with the execs and trying to figure out, okay, which day would be best to have this certain event? What time do we want to do it? How long do we want to do it for? And then keeping track through SDS metrics to evaluate how successful those events are. I've noticed myself, I don't know about the exec team, but people won't necessarily RSVP on the SDS, but we will have a huge turnout at certain events, which I mean is better than the opposite in my opinion. And then I work with the exec team to keep Asana up to date and make sure all of the events get put in a timely manner. And then along with event management, we also have tied in officer of community outreach with it. So right now, community outreach has kind of been put on a little bit of a pause just with how crazy this spring semester has been. But what I do is I find the different ways for students to be able to volunteer from wherever they are. So we've done closet cleanouts, we've done food drives, you know, cleaning up neighborhoods, all that kind of stuff. I do I'll reach out to, you know, different volunteering events that are going on to build that relationship with the communities, and then also encouraging everybody to share what they did during that community outreach event. And then I am a liaison with other organizations, so Arizona State and non-Arizona State to be involved. And then also just really trying to get out into the community and help out as much as we can.
Okay, so the Officer of Web Administration focuses primarily on updating our website. Our website is updated with scholarships, research opportunities, and resources. We have tabs, a lot of tabs, but the public only sees the active tabs. So behind that, we actually have a lot of other tabs that we keep unpublished is what it's called. So it's hidden from everybody else, but we have where that is where they prep and prepare to publish, right? So for example, our elections tab is already in the process, but we can't see that, right? So it's actually them working on the website actively and updating it. So at the bottom of our website, you'll see upcoming events in the graphics. You'll see that constantly being updated for the incoming events that are coming up. You will also see YouTube videos in our YouTube video section be updated. I believe we have 3 per section with the most updated. We also update our newsletter as well, and we have that up there. We keep that very updated. They work with the IDE advisor to ensure accessibility. So there are actually can't think of what the word is called, but it's like captions over the boxes. This is bad. This used to be my position. I don't even remember the name.
Alt text.
Alt text. Thank you. That is on our images, and we make sure everything is covered. And they also work with the Officer of Advertising and Branding to actually collect the graphics and post the events on the website as well.
And then Last but not least, we have our newsletter editors. This is an appointed committee position, as you guys will be in charge of writing our monthly newsletter, which is the Lightbulb Gazette. Each month, you guys are responsible for formatting and making sure that the newsletter is done. So that way we can send it out on the 1st. We typically like to have it done by the 28th of every month, just so we can make sure that everything's finalized. We get the mass emails for it, and we get it up on our website and ready to post on our socials. You get to work alongside with the execs and the officers to help gather inspiration. As you know, we have 5 different sections in our newsletter, and you guys work with us, or you guys can come to us with ideas. So you guys gather that. Like, we have our brain teaser, our main story, our mental health, our scholarship, and then our event section in there. And then also, if you're interested in doing the newsletter, you can gain writing experience from doing this, and then put this on like your CV or anything to help with if you are interested in doing like scientific writing.
I would like to add in real quick that although the newsletter editors are more of, like Jonina said, a committee, so these positions aren't necessarily officers, right? They're just people that work with our officers, right? So there's not a obligation they have to follow like our officers, other than these small little things here, right? It's like a team of people. So it's not as strict or in stone as our officers, because our newsletter editors can swap in and out for when they want to do things, and as long as they're obviously communicating with us, that's fine. But it's not as expecting, right? But as long as their newsletters are out, they look pretty, we're all happy. So proper etiquette, this is a really important thing that we do want to discuss. It's important to be polite and welcoming as a leader of ideas. So you represent ideas, and your behavior reflects that back onto the society. So if you are an officer and you go, for example, on Sun Devils Connect, which is like the Facebook group, and you just start saying anything and everything you want, there's ways that people know that you are connected back to us. And then that goes back onto the execs, and then it goes to Dr. Austin, and then it goes to ASU clubs, and it is a chain of things. So it's just very simple to just watch etiquette, be polite, be careful. Anything that is said that can come back, there will have to be some grievance forms filled out, and then the whole procedure done. So we just try to avoid that by just saying, be nice.
And then there are other requirements if you do become an officer or an executive officer. We have 2 monthly meetings to discuss upcoming events, what we want to do for the year, and to schedule out everything. You must attend at least one of those. So if you can't attend the first meeting of the month, you have to attend the second meeting of the month, and just communicate with your executives and letting them know that, hey, I won't be able to come. If you're unable to make it, we do post the recordings of the meetings. So you'll go into the meeting recording folder in the Google Drive, watch the meeting, and then there's a secret word that we put in there to make sure that you guys have watched the meeting, because some meetings do have important things that we talk about, such as we had our most recent one was discussing today's event. Others will be involved with Welcome Week, doing new member orientations, stuff like that. So and we like to get input from everybody. So it is required that you do come to at least one a month.
So that wraps up our presentation. So we want to thank everybody for watching this or attending this, either one. So we will be sending out, we'll also send it out in the Discord and Facebook and everything like that. And I believe in our newsletter, hopefully gonna have an interest form on there, like a little section. I'm gonna try and see if we can figure that out. And we look forward to working with everybody that is interested. So we're just gonna go ahead and stop the recording and then do any questions that anybody may